Good evening. Back in August of 2021, I applied to join the fire service. And I didn't know back then how long the process would be and how involved it would be. So over the next 18 months, I took part in numerous tests, online psychometric tests, fitness tests, medical tests, working at height, working confined spaces, mental arithmetic. A lot of tests. Interviews. In February of this year, I was told that pending one more medical assessment, I would start my training for the fire service in May. And during the medical, someone came in from the room next door and said to me, "Excuse me, Mr. Henderson, remind me, what is your prescription for your contact lenses?" So I told them, and they said, that's too high. Your eyesight isn't good enough for you to be in the fire service. We can't let you in." So that was that. I don't make decisions very easily. I had agonised over the decision to join the fire service for a long time. And as each new assessment approached, I prayed and I would say, "God, if this isn't the right thing, just shut the door. Okay, if this is not what I should be doing, then just make that clear to me and I'll move on." And as each test came and as I passed each assessment, I got more and more confident that, okay, this is obviously, I'm going in the right direction, I'm doing the right thing here. Particularly for the fitness test, because I did not in my wildest dreams think I would pass that. But Kat and I talked about it together, we'd prayed about it together, I'd prayed about it a lot on my own, and I really felt that this was the next chapter for our lives. And just like that, the door was closed. I got back in my car to drive home. In the confines of my soundproof car, I was doing a lot of shouting, and I'll be honest, not all of it was very sanctified language. I was angry. Not at God particularly, not at the fire service even, just angry at the situation. Angry about the wasted time, about the 18 months of inner turmoil I put myself through, about the excitement that I felt when I put on the uniform, only to have it all stopped again. One of the bits of the Easter story that I think about a lot is that Saturday between the crucifixion and the resurrection. We don't know what the disciples got up to on the time between the crucifixion and the resurrection. But we can imagine, I think, when Jesus is resurrected and appears to them again, he finds them locked in an upstairs room, living in fear. And I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that that's probably where they've been since the crucifixion. The last 3 years of their lives they'd spent with this man, waiting for him to conquer the world, and yet here they are, mourning the death of their friend and leader, not sure what happens next. Now, I'm not comparing my search for a job to the apparent death of the Son of God, but a lot of Christians, I think, know the pain of God being silent, of times when it feels like our prayers are just bouncing off the roof. It will happen to all of us, and it is painful, particularly to those who are new in their relationship with God. And at times like this, we need to remember not to rely on our feelings, which are so easily swayed, and at times, these times in particular, can drag us down into a path of self-pity. Instead, we need to rely on the truths that we know. God is good. God is sovereign. God keeps his promises, and one of those promises is that he will never leave us. Our situations and our feelings will change, but the character of God never will. It might take a lot of effort, but if we can hold on to that, if we can cement that in our hearts, then we can get through the times when it feels like God is silent, and we can focus on the hope we have in the future. As a church, we are shortly going to be studying through the book of Habakkuk, and so I've been studying that to prepare for writing the youth material for it. And it's a very short but a very good book. And in brief, what happens is Habakkuk cries out in frustration to God that the injustices that he sees and that life is unfair. And God does answer Habakkuk, but Habakkuk doesn't really like the answer. So he cries out again, and he complains again, and then he sits back and he waits for God to answer. And God's answer is in essence to trust in him, to trust that God knows what he's doing, and to trust that the things will get better. And that comes from trusting the character of God and knowing the character of God. Justice will be served, even though things seem difficult. And Habakkuk ends his book by saying this. Even though the fig trees have no blossoms, and there are no grapes on the vines, even though the olive crop fails, and the fields lie empty and barren, even though the flocks die in the fields, and the cattle barns are empty, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in the God of my salvation. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes me as sure-footed as a deer, able to tread upon the heights. So at the times when it feels like God is silent and it feels like there's a bit of distance between us and God, don't let our feelings get on top of us, but to remember that the character of God is love. The character of God is true and sure and will never change, and we can rely on that and we can cling to that even when times can seem a little bit tough.